Hey yo, what's up, Sci fam? It's your boy Nickel back at it. Here we go. Second page. Prokaryote versus eukaryote. So again, let's take a look at the design of the page here. You can see that it's going to be titled Prokaryote versus Eukaryote. And then we're going to have two sections here on our page. We're going to identify prokaryotic cells. We're going to draw a picture of prokaryotic cells, and we're going to list some interesting facts about them. We're going to do the same thing with a eukaryotic cell as well. This is on one page, so figure out how you're going to organize your page. This is my idea. Feel free to do it in your own way. All right, so to begin here, like I said, you need to divide your page, and we're going to have the left side here in my page is going to be prokaryotic or prokaryote. And on the right side is where I will draw and label and identify the parts of a eukaryote. All right, now to really get started here, we need to draw a picture because a picture does a great job describing the differences between these two types of cells. So let's get some ideas here from Mr. Google. All right, Google Images is going to show us, if we type in prokaryote versus eukaryote, lots of examples here. So a lot of times these prokaryotic cells actually look like pills, and they have this like little tail on them and all these little pili on them. The pili sense the environment, the flagella help them move around. So a lot of times these are organisms all on their own. They can move on their own. They don't clump together with other cells. Whereas the eukaryotic cells, you don't see as much of that kind of locomotion on it, because usually eukaryotic cells are all clumped together to make like a kangaroo or something. Here's another good example of a prokaryotic versus eukaryotic cell. I'm going to draw your attention to the middle of a eukaryotic cell. There's a lot of different things that have very specific shapes and structures. If you look over on the prokaryotic cell, there's a bunch of, it looks like there's some string and a bunch of dots in there. Those dots are ribosomes, and the string is actually like the DNA of the cell, and it's just floating around in there. So eukaryotic cells are much more structured. They have a lot more specific like cabinets or specific areas within the cell that house the different things. So you can see this, most likely you've made a cell model of a eukaryotic cell. Anyway, let's get back to those notes then, and let's try to draw ourselves a picture of a prokaryotic cell versus a eukaryotic cell. So for the prokaryotic cell, I'm going to draw that long like kind of pill shape, and it did have a outside and then an inside membrane, and then inside there was just like that, the DNA or the genetic material is just all over the place here, but there were also some circles in there. Those little dots were ribosomes. Ribosomes are the thing that go and actually go along the DNA to understand and interpret the DNA into proteins. Sometimes they have a tail, sometimes they just have some little flagella on them, or pili right here, so you can add those as well. Now that's different than a eukaryotic cell, and a eukaryotic cell is the classic type of cell here. We're going to draw an animal cell as our example. So I'm going to draw a nucleus because that's one of the organelles that are in there that's nice and organized, and the endoplasmic reticulum kind of winds its way around the nucleus here. Draw some mitochondria in here. Lots of those. Those are what the cell uses to create energy. Maybe some Golgi stacks here, and then some ribosomes as well. So you can see there's a lot more specific things within the eukaryotic cell compared to a prokaryotic cell. The eukaryotic cell has a lot of specific systems within it. So if we look at the prokaryotic cell, pro means before, so it's like before a nucleus was there, all this DNA is just everywhere. So that's one of the main differences, is that the DNA is in the central open part of the cell. It's just in the open part. Over here though, in a eukaryotic cell, that DNA, that genetic material, is in the, can you guess it? Do you know it? Do you know your organelles? You got it. The DNA is in the nucleus. Okay, so the other thing that makes the eukaryotic cells unique is that they contain many, not just one, but very, very many specialized organelles. Organelles. Now, if you think about organelles, they're like miniature organs within the cell. So if you think about our organs in our body, how they all work together to allow us to be who we are and to breathe and run and use our muscles, a cell has basically structures like that within it that help it do its jobs too. So a eukaryotic cell contains many specialized organelles. And also, these things are 10 times bigger than a prokaryotic cell. So it's a lot easier to see one of those under a microscope. So eukaryotic cells, some examples of those, anything from any type of plant cell or any type of animal cell, and even fungi actually also are eukaryotic organisms. So I think you're all pretty familiar with those. Well, in order to get an idea of some prokaryotic cell examples, I looked on the internet and I found here that one it would be E. coli, which maybe some of you have actually been infected by this before, but it's actually commonly found in the lower intestine of any warm-blooded organism, so humans would be within that. Most of them are harmless, but they can cause food poisoning, and they can actually be beneficial as well, and they give you this vitamin K2, and then they also help prevent nasty bacteria from getting in your intestine. Ooh, wouldn't want that. So E. coli is an example of a prokaryote. So is strep. If you've ever had strep throat, Streptococcus bacterium. It's an infection of the back of your throat. You get a fever, red tonsils, sore throat, and your lymph nodes get enlarged as well. So that's another example of a prokaryotic cell, is that you get this bacterium gets inside of you and it causes this infection. That's a prokaryote that gets inside of you that causes that. Soil bacteria has some prokaryotes in it. Just helps... it is found in decaying vegetation. So it also has a distinct earthy odor if you are out looking for it. Maybe that's why soil smells so good. And lastly, archaea. Archaea are a subclass of prokaryotes. They're able to survive really harsh conditions. Some you may have heard of, like in the Yellowstone geothermal pots, the mud pots, or even the some of the really, really hot, boiling the hot springs that are there in Yellowstone. So those are all examples of prokaryotes. They're these pretty much usually single-celled, simple organisms, but from E. coli to strep throat, they can cause some problems for us eukaryotic organisms. So examples of those would be bacteria. You can label some of those specific examples like E. coli, etc., and also archaea. I think I messed that one up there. I think it's archaea. Let's look at this. A-E-A. A-R-C-H-A-E-A. There you have it. Sometimes you got to learn how to spell a word on the fly. All right. So next, you're going to be looking at those different organelles that a eukaryotic cell has as a reminder of what each of their jobs are within a cell. All right, folks. I will see you in the next one.